Welcome back, everybody. Once again, we have another very, very special guest for you all. Someone I hope you all know because Mike and I definitely talk about his work at least once a month when a book comes out. Everybody, welcome to the show, Evan Doc Shaner. On the show, Doc.
Welcome, man.
Hi there.
And very special 200th episode guest too. So that's there you go. You can put that on your resume. I don't know if you need it in the repertoire, but I think you're sticking with DC for another year at least, right? You just signed the contract last year.
Yeah, I extended my contract up until 2022, spring of
Okay.
2022.
Awesome, man. Congrats. I know. You seem like a pretty big DC fan to me, so that's got to be pretty cool to be doing that, right?
Yeah, I love being at DC. So
Yeah.
it's a good place. Yeah.
Let's just jump into really quick the origin story of Doc Shaner. Let's hear. I mean, were you always reading comics at a young age? Like, what got you into it?
As a kid, I was mostly into the comic strips, like the newspaper stuff.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Because I don't want to assume how old you guys are, but I grew up in that second or third golden age, whatever, of Far Side and Calvin and Hobbes and stuff.
Yep. Right.
So that was most of my comics input was from there.
Mm.
We had a local comic book store, but I was terrified of going in there.
And you didn't want to be seen with that crowd? Is that how it was?
Well, it was kind of dark and it smelled like old books.
Yeah, musty.
It was mostly adults in there most of the time, so it was terrifying.
Mm.
And but I think I went in there once or twice to get like one random issue of the old Clone Saga, and I think a trade of Death of Superman.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, those were like my first comic books.
Yeah.
So
that's a little different, I guess, going from like Calvin and Hobbes and Death of Superman.
Right. But then I think I grew out of them for a bit there in middle school and the better part of high school, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but somewhere along the way in high school, I got into the Hulk and X-Men, and so I started finally picking up the books again, and I've been reading again ever since.
That's awesome. Yeah, typically, if people are into comics or like in the industry, they're a fan of comics too. So, but you've really made a name, right? Well, a lot of popularity at DC with all the stuff you've been doing there, and it seems like you really enjoy what you're doing. And is it safe to say like Superman is probably your favorite character, or do you have a favorite?
Yeah, I don't know that I ever think about it in terms of like I don't rank them,
right? Yeah,
very often. But if I had to pick a favorite, it's Superman.
Okay, that's awesome.
So you get back into comics, you start reading again. Like, were you drawing this whole time? Was that something you've always loved doing? And at what point did that become something where you're like, maybe I'm good enough that I could maybe do something professionally with this?
Drawing was always a thing for me. When I was real little and into the newspaper stuff, that's what I wanted to do. That's all I wanted to do was be a newspaper cartoonist. And when I got back into comics, I didn't really think I would be able to hack it in comic books. I was still pretty sure I was going to be a newspaper cartoonist, and I ended up getting a job at the college. I went to Central Michigan University, and I got a job at the newspaper there, doing the editorial cartoons. And I hated it, but I loved getting paid to draw.
Right, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty nice.
And I thought for sure when I graduated that I would be a newspaper cartoonist. And this was right around the time that newspapers finally really took a dive down the hill.
Yeah,
especially in terms of the prospect of being a newspaper cartoonist, a new guy on the scene. There's just no jobs.
Right.
So I kind of not to act like comic books were my backup, but it just kind of happened that way.
Yeah.
And I kind of backed up into it, and then it was like, oh, okay, well, I guess I better learn how to draw a comic book now.
So is this where we noticed when doing some research that you tend to refer yourself as a cartoonist. Is that where that comes from, or is there something more to that title in your eyes?
It it almost definitely started as a like, this will make me sound like I know what I'm talking about kind of thing. I don't know that there's any real distinction beyond. I didn't want to just say comic book artist. I think maybe I was still holding on to the idea of working in newspapers at the time when I started using that. But yeah, I think it was mostly just to differentiate between solely being an artist and the idea of maybe doing more down the road.
It definitely it makes you seem more sophisticated, though. You say cartoon.
Well, good.
It's like the pinky out of
Right,
comic book drawing. But and I guess it's. I mean, your art's amazing, and I mean, we're trying not to fanboy too hard here, but your approach is. I mean, it is like more pop art style, and it's not something you see in comic books every day. So do you see like there's people that must go out there and just pick up your covers just to pick up the covers, and can't even care about the story sometimes, I would think, right?
I have no idea.
Oh, okay. I don't know if you ever get approached at cons and stuff like that. They're like, oh, like I just have all your covers, and like
I mean, I do see a lot of covers. Nobody,
yeah.
I don't think anybody's ever said, I only got this for the cover.
Oh, okay.
But,
well,
but I do, I do. A lot of the covers get brought up, surprisingly.
Yeah. Cool. And I mean, like the covers for Strange Adventures right now, and I think your art. It's interesting how like your art and Mitch's art are two different spectrums when talking about like comic book art, I would say, but they just like work together, I guess, for that book. I mean, might as well talk about it because it's the most relevant one right now, but it's interesting because you see those covers, but then like you open it up and his is a little more gritty, but it's I don't know what makes it work together like that, but do you guys like discuss that at all? Do you communicate that when you're doing these books, or
not in detail?
Okay.
We definitely. I mean, Mitch and I talk about it every day.
Mm-hmm.
But it's never been like you do this and I'll do this.
Mm-hmm.
Or we really leave each other alone pretty much as far as specifics. And every now and then I'll write him, and this is more to do with interiors than the covers, but I'll write him and just say like, hey, what are you doing for this page to make sure that I'm not stepping on his toes,
Mm-hmm.
or just to make sure the page flows better.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, no, we, the covers we come up with together, to make sure we decided obviously early on with the first issue that we were going to do the thing where we're either playing off similar themes or we're using similar, designs, or core designs, to kind of play off of, but never in a way that like I have to dictate to Mitch, you should go more this way, or
right,
vice versa.
Oh, it just happens to work like that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So when working together with another artist like that, when you guys get the script for a new issue of Strange Adventures, is it laid out in Tom's mind, like, okay, Mitch gets these pages and Doc gets these pages, and guys just go? Or is it kind of like you get the script and you guys figure it out as a team together?
Oh no, it's Tom. Tom has got it pretty well figured out in terms of every panel, or every page. If one page is all one person, he'll put at the top in bold, Mitch, Doc.
Yep.
And somehow, 9 issues in, we haven't accidentally drawn one another's panels yet. Thankfully.
Yeah. You're over halfway there, so that's good, I guess.
Yeah. But yeah, no, Tom, I think because Tom and Mitch had a pretty clear idea early on of what kind of thing they wanted to do with Adam on this book. It's always been pretty clearly delineated between the two of us, who would be handling what. And that's, I think, the thrill of the book so far has been kind of surprising Mitch and him surprising me. Because we don't show each other a ton before the issue really comes together. Sometimes, like I mentioned, I'll ask him every now and then just to make sure our layouts aren't clashing. But until I hand the colors over to him from my side, Mitch and I don't really see a ton of each other's sides of the book.
Wow.
And so we get a lot of pleasant surprises when the whole thing comes together.
That's awesome. That's really cool. And yeah, just to touch on something that you did recently, you had on your Instagram, the Superman with the Christmas sweater. That was that was a nice treat. But that was awesome. I was like, I can see this as an actual event in like Superman's life. You know, it's like you have the most powerful man in the world, like putting on this ugly Christmas sweater. So is this like a yearly thing that you're doing, right? These fun, like candid moments, or?
Yeah, that one specifically was kind of a last minute addition. That okay. I've been the last 6 or 7 years, around Christmas or New Year's, I'll do kind of a year end, like here are the characters I worked on for the year, and just doing a little, like you mentioned, kind of a slice of life,
right?
Sort of, maybe they're at a party or what have you, taking a picture together. And this year, I just really wanted to draw Superman.
Yeah.
I drew I drew 1 page of Legion of Superheroes with Superboy on it.
Yep.
And that had Lois and Superman in a circle panel about that big. So I took that as my justification to say I drew Superman this year.
That's awesome. You're like, it was there, it's ant sized, but I drew.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And yeah, I mean, just to like see a character like that in a moment like that, it's just like, okay, it's like, it makes him more human too, I think. Mm-hmm. But yeah,
I have, those are I don't get to draw a ton just for me these days, just for fun. So those have been I kind of save it for the year end thing, and I just try and do something that's just fun for me.
Yeah.
So I want to go back a few years because recently DC did something that was one of my favorite things DC's done in forever, and that was bring back the Hanna-Barbera characters, and you were a part of that. Yep. So you did a bunch of stuff for Future Quest. One, like, do you have a love for those characters, or and how did that project come about? Like when they decided to do all the Future Quest, the Scooby Apocalypse, and everything else they did with that.
Okay, so yes, I definitely had a huge love for the Hanna-Barbera stuff. Space Ghost was the kind of gig that I always thought that would be like extremely cool, but would never happen.
Yeah,
much in the same way Shazam was, or what else? There've been a number of gigs in my career where just never thought it was the kind of thing that would happen. Logistically speaking, I just didn't think there would be a Space Ghost comic book.
Right. Yeah.
Again, anytime soon. Yeah, I grew up on Space Ghost, Coast to Coast, but also the older cartoons and and reruns of Johnny Quest and Birdman. But yeah, it was funny. Jeff Parker and I, Jeff wrote Future Quest, and we had been working together for a while, and we were coming up on we had just finished something, and we were trying to figure out what we might want to do next. And we had kind of thrown around some ideas, and we pitched one thing that didn't end up happening. But like the same day we got word that the pitch wasn't going to go through, Jeff had gotten a message that Darwin Cook wanted to talk to him about something.
Oh man!
And because the whole genesis of Future Quest was something that Darwin and Dan DiDio cooked up.
Okay.
My understanding of it was Dan knew that we had the Hanna-Barbera properties coming and wanted to do something big with them because he's such a massive fan of those characters. And he went straight to Darwin for this Future Quest side of things, all the action cartoons.
Yep.
And Darwin, I think, was into it, but ultimately said he would be happy to kind of foster it and help kind of come up with a treatment Bible for it, but wouldn't be available to write and draw it. And this was shortly before he passed. We didn't know at the time that it was because he was sick. But he got in touch. I think he got in touch with Jeff, or he told Dan that he should come to Jeff and I to do Future Quest. So, long story short, Jeff ended up meeting with Darwin and kind of talking over this thing. They came up with a lot of the story beats together and the treatments for a lot of the individual characters. And then they brought me in to do designs and get the whole thing rolling. And it was an amazing job and way too many characters, but I had a fun time doing it.
Yeah.
It was a blast.
Yeah, those books were just so much fun. Like I didn't necessarily grow up with those characters. They were kind of a generation behind me, but I know that my father grew up with them and he instilled some of that in me. And then when those books started coming out, I think I picked up every single one, like the Flintstones, the Future Quest, all of them. And it was just so much fun to see a different take on them and then kind of bringing them together. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I love those books. Those are great.
Yeah. And like you said, I remember being in the comic book shop when we talked about that. Like, are you guys getting the Hanna-Barbera books? And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about?
Right.
Not make it. Like, I was like, is anybody gonna get them? And then they showed like the lineup they had on the people that were like writing and drawing these books, and I was like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Like, these are gonna be amazing.
Well, that's when I knew that Jeff was having this lunch with Darwin. And the whole day I was like, I can't wait till I hear what the hell Jeff and Darwin are talking about.
Yeah, right.
And I got an email from Jeff later that evening, and he just said, "You're never going to believe what Darwin wants to pitch to us." And then he sent me later that evening the image that Darwin had drawn of all the characters that they used in early advertising for it. And I lost it. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
That's what we were being asked to do. So.
Yeah. And to be part of something that like Darwin was pitching to, that had to be awesome. I mean, he was such a staple in the industry. And
yeah, it was huge for me personally. I was a huge fan of Darwin from the second New Frontier hit.
Right.
And I never got a chance to really talk to him directly, but he was awesome, and it was just to even be kind of a part of something he was also part of was really good for me.
Yeah, that's so cool.
So moving forward for you, I mean, you guys are still working on Strange Adventures. Do you have any clue what's next after that, or?
I just started talking to DC about what might be next, like in the last week or two, because we're coming on the third round. I don't know. We've kind of broken it up into thirds. Mm-hmm. Strange Adventures. So we're rounding the end of Strange, and we just started talking about what might be next. So I don't really have a huge clue. One thing was pitched to me that sounds insane, but I can't. It's so crazy that I really can't say anything about it.
All I'm hoping for and praying at night for is a Justice Society cover that at least a variant or something. Some Justice Society characters that you get to at least play around with a little bit. And I don't know if you got to put that in somebody's ear somewhere. Like, how does that work? I mean, do you get any input on like any like a Flash cover or something like that? Or are you just like, hey, that would be really cool for me to do. Can I work on something like that, or did they kind of approach you with that stuff?
For the most part, up till now, it's been they come to me with something.
Okay.
I have in the past kind of every now I would ask about like, hey, you guys doing anything with this character or this book? Because if not, I'd be interested. But nothing ever seems to come of that. And I found, weirdly enough, if I just sit around and wait, I love those gigs.
It comes to you. That's awesome.
In due time. But there's a lot of those Justice Society. I don't know about the whole team, but there's a number of those characters that I have a real fondness for. So.
Okay. Like maybe a Dr. Midnight or something like that.
Wildcat's my favorite. I love
Wildcat. That is, Stephanie Phillips did the Wildcat little story in one of the collected issues they did, and I was like, we need more Wildcat, like, come on, please, yeah. Oh, that's so awesome to hear you love Wildcat. I feel so bad because people see him as a joke, because it's like Wildcat, but it's like this guy, man, he's
right.
He just
I think there's no reason he shouldn't be roughly equivalent to like the Ben Grimm of the DC universe.
Oh, that's
a great comparison.
Yeah, I never thought about, man, that would be, wow. That's awesome.
That boxing issue of things back in the 70s, I think, or the 80s, is one of my favorites. So there's that comparison anyway, but just Wildcat's a favorite for sure.
So I know a lot of creators don't necessarily like this question, but I always ask it anyways. Is there anyone that you haven't touched at DC that you would really love to, like a character you'd really love to work with, or a team, or anything like that? Put it out in the ethers, hoping DC hears this.
They won't hear it. They never did.
It's weird because when I first signed on with DC exclusively, I talked to Dan on the phone, and he asked, kind of the same question, and said like, who are the characters you really want a chance at? And I gave him a short list of 4, and I've had the luck of working on, I mean, if you count covers, all 4 of them, and it was Superman, Captain Marvel, Plastic Man, and Flash.
Oh man.
And with a few of them, I feel like I had a good shot with them.
Yeah.
Nothing crazy big, but I had a fun time, and if that's all I get to say with them, that's okay with me. So there's a short list of characters beyond that. The Etrigan, the demon, is a big one for me.
Oh yeah.
I would really love to do something with Etrigan. Wildcat is another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure, those I'd be so happy if you drew one. Oh man.
Really, that's the thing about being at DC is it's not just because it's a job. It's I have a lot of fondness for nearly all of those characters. I'm hard pressed to find a character I don't like at DC.
Right.
So.
And I mean, the hat you're wearing was the one that started it all, right? I mean, I've seen that hat before, but that's the one that's been around for a few years now, right?
It's the most disgusting thing on earth, and my wife hates it. But when you have a comfortable hat, I
yeah. I mean, it's got the DC logo on it too. I mean, hey, you can't beat that.
The one that everybody hates.
Yeah, is that the one with like the page folding over? Was that the one?
Yeah, the weird book flip.
Nobody knew what they were doing there. It's all right. They tried. Awesome.
It's always great when you get that nice fitting hat, and then as you slowly see it deteriorate, it's just it's depressing.
Yeah.
I know. I every couple years I have to buy a new hat, and I'm just depressed by it because I'm like, oh, this hat I wore for all these years every day, and now it's gone.
Yeah,
and it's especially one like that means a lot to you, I'm sure. But yeah. But so again, man, we loved having you on. Thank you for being on the show. So if we want, I mean, our listeners, they know who you are, but I mean, where can we send them if they want to follow all the stuff you're doing? I mean, I know you have a website, right? So
Yeah, I think it's docshanerart.com, but really the best place to start is my Twitter. That kind of that's the hub to take you everywhere else. So at DocShaner.
Okay. Cool.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Once again, thanks so much for being on. Hopefully we can have you back on sometime in the future.
Yeah.
It's always great talking.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, guys. This is great.
Thanks.